Consciousness. Basic questions we're going to be looking at in this lecture. What do people typically dream about? Are there age differences in REM sleep patterns? Why do we dream? What is hypnosis? Is it really an altered state of consciousness or something else? So here's a question. That's a pretty scene. How do you know you're not dreaming right now? So you think about that for a second. See if you can come up with an answer. How do you know you're not dreaming right now? This could be a dream, couldn't it? Well, here's the answer to the questions. Cursory answer, but an answer that we're going to proceed on. You know you're not dreaming right now because you know the difference between what it's like to be asleep and in a dream and awake. So there's some learning that you've done over the course of your development such that you can make that discrimination. We can discriminate whether we're here, we're there, whether we're dreaming, whether we're awake. And if you can't make those discriminations, then you simply haven't learned to tell the difference, but most of us can. So consider this. Most of us dream. All of us dream, actually. Some of us remember more of our dreams than others. But dreams are really a fascinating subject to study. Some people dedicate a portion or all of their research time to studying dreams and dreaming and so forth. Theories of dreaming, that's what we're really looking at least in part, in this lecture. So consider this. Have you ever been chased by somebody or something in a dream? Have you ever had trouble taking a test or performing on stage? Have you ever been naked or inappropriately dressed in public? Have you ever been lost, trapped, stuck, or paralyzed? So when I ask this question in class, typically I get a few hands. The most hands go up or have to do with being chased or being trapped. And these are common dream themes that people share. So there's some people that study this kind of stuff. They want to know what people are dreaming about. Dreams are phenomenally present to us, most of us. That is, they're something that most humans experience, so therefore they are subject matter for study. And in Western cultures, people like Sigmund Freud have attempted to help people make sense of their dreams, the golden, I guess, gateway to the unconscious. So there's been great thinkers in our history, in the history of this discipline, that have really focused on dreams. One of Freud's greatest works was the book he wrote on the interpretation of dreams. So many people consider dreams as important, and not only in Western culture, but in other cultures as well. We'll look at cultural differences in I guess, the importance that we place on dreams in a couple of minutes. But dream content certainly is an area of study, and it's an area of interest to many of us. So what do people typically dream about? Well, usually dreams are self-centered. That means we're the star of our show. Usually we're very present in our dreams. We're doing things. We're engaged in action. We're the star of our own show. Common themes that we see and we hear about in dreams are sex, anxiety, and aggression. These are sort of the stuff of life. Sexual motivation is something that's within us all. Certainly we all experience anxiety and stress and feelings of hostility and that sort of thing. So those manifest in our dreams. However, most dream content is sort of boring, mundane, everyday stuff. That is, you don't really get people when you ask them to keep dream records and stuff like that. You don't really get vivid dreams that contain these sort of typical, or what we believe to be typical, themes of sex and aggression and anxiety. Typically, they're much more, I got on a bike and then I wasn't on a bike anymore, then I was driving, and then I was home, and then the dream ended, or something like that. Just stuff that is unremarkable. Freud suggested that experiences that we have during the day, or even stuff that's happening around us in sleep, can kind of make it into our dreams. He called this a day residue, and certainly it kind of makes sense if we have experiences during the day that we are thinking about or impact us. As we're going to sleep, we're considering those experiences. Maybe we're troubled by them, or maybe we are excited by them. Certainly, they would um, be something that's on our mind, and then they would appear in our dreams. And Freud suggested that the stuff of everyday life makes it into our dreams. So, in part, we dream about stuff that we've experienced during the day, um, and we're sorting that out. All right, developmental differences in dreams and dreaming. Let's look at newborns. So newborns are spending about half the time that they're asleep in REM. So you see a lot of REM sleep in newborns, and then that decreases over the lifespan. So adults, for example, are spending about 20 to 25% of their sleep in REM. Time in REM remains stable as we age, however. So time spent in slow wave sleep decreases actually. So REM is stable, and then time spent in delta sleep actually goes down. So let's look at kids in their dreams. So kids have few well-developed dreams before age 9. If you ask a 4-year-old what they dreamt about, probably they're not going to be able to articulate a clear story. One of the reasons for this is that they haven't learned what's called narrative structure. That is, most stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and there's sort of a narrative arc. So kids can't organize their experience into that kind of coherent pattern. Certainly they're dreaming, but they're challenged when they're asked to articulate those dreams. But after age 9 or so, then they can tell a story, so to speak, and they can introspect and they can look inward and articulate that dream to somebody else. Adults are dreaming about 4 to 6 times per night, but most of us don't remember 90 to 90%, 99% of our dreams. So if you ask somebody, hey, do you ever dream? And they say no, the fact is that they are dreaming, they're just not remembering their dreams. That could be you. You might think, oh, I never dream, but certainly you are dreaming. It's just that you're not recollecting your dreams. The only way that you can actually recollect your dreams is if you wake up partially, and we all do this as we cycle through the sleep cycle. About roughly 4 times a night, we're going stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 2, and then into REM. Doing most of our dreaming at the end of the night, as we learned in the first lecture. Wake up just a little bit, enough to encode that dream content into memory. That's the only way that you're going to be able to remember your dreams. If you are aware enough to attend to what happened in your dreams so that you can make a memory out of it. You form a memory. Let's do a concept check here. Most of the dreams people have contain exciting and extraordinary events. Is that true or false? That would be false. Most dreams are mundane, everyday kind of stuff. Here's another concept check. Most adults don't recall blank of dreams. That would be D, 90 to 99% of their dreams. All right, consider this. Have you ever done superhuman things, fly and so forth, in your dreams? Has a dream ever helped you create something or solve a problem? All right, so the basic question is, we've had these experiences in our dreams, and we all dream, even though we might not remember all of our dreams. The question is, so how come? What is the point? If you buy into the theory of evolution and look at our traits and attributes, our physical and psychological traits, including dreaming, which is something we all do, what is it about the dreams that has enabled them to persist over the course of our development as a species? Well, here's some theories. ways to look at that question and try to answer it. Freud, uh, one of the ideas that he proposed with respect to why we dream is wish fulfillment. So, and that has to do with sort of the basic instincts that we have, sexual motivation and the motivation to aggress and so forth. Sort of, we're walking around in our ordinary daily life with all these impulses, we can't really act on them because there's rules and norms of society that don't allow us to act on some of our more basic impulses. And so we repress them. They go into our unconscious, and then they manifest themselves in our dreams. So Freud suggested that we dream about stuff that we're not able to act upon in the day, and this is in our ordinary waking life, and this fulfilling ungratified needs. So if we have a repressed desire to achieve and accomplish great things and be superhuman, we might dream that we're flying, and so forth. Rosalind Cartwright and colleagues came up with the problem-solving function of dreams. That is, when we're dreaming, we're sort of released from the ordinary constraints of that govern ordinary life, like physics, the gravity and rules of logic and stuff like that. So in our dreams, we sort of are able to think divergently. We can think outside the box. Anything can happen in a dream. So this supports creative thinking or divergent thinking about everyday problems. There's lots of stories, anecdotes of scientists who are struggling with difficult questions. Joseph Kekulé, for example, the German chemist, was working on the molecular structure of benzene, and he took a nap, and he had a dream about snakes with the tails in a ring, forming a ring with the tails of the snakes that were in front of them in their mouths, and he woke up and it was, Eureka, I've got it. It's a ring shape. So this is one of the anecdotes that you can read about how dreams supported this problem solving that people were trying to do. And then lastly, Hobson and McCarley's activation synthesis model. There's nothing really, well, let me put it this way. I think Freud's and Cartwright's notions of dreaming, theories of dreaming are suggestive of either unconscious activity and desires that we have, in the case of Freud, or the ability to solve problems. And so there's some practical purpose to dreams. Hobson and McCarley suggested nothing of the sort. Rather, they suggested that when you're sleeping, the area below the cortex, remember the cortex and the cerebral cortex, is that part of the brain that's responsible for higher order functioning, that kind of takes information and puts it together into a coherent whole, and that's kind of what we act on and base our thoughts and our emotions on, the work of the cortex. Well, Hobson and McCarley suggested that below the level of the cortex, where all the midbrain and hindbrain, where the sort of more basic structures or the structures that support more basic functions, like the hypothalamus, feeding and mating and fighting and fleeing and that sort of thing. Well, these lower brain centers are doing what they do. They fire off their neural impulses in sleep. And then your cortex, in lacking a state of awareness, and the type of integration that the cortex supports, integration of information from different brain centers that the cortex supports while we're awake. In the absence of that, the cortex is just kind of trying to do what it ordinarily does. It's taking information that's coming from the subcortical areas and trying to piece together some sort of coherent story. And you could think of your cortex as a storyteller. It's gathering all this information and kind of piecing together that rendering of the world out there. All right, so those are some theories of dreaming, why we dream. So according to Freud, the function of dreaming is C, wish fulfillment. All right, consider this dream mess. Here's some dream myths that you might have come across at one point. So if you die in a dream, will you really die? The answer is no. In fact, it's unfalsifiable. You never know, because if somebody dreams that they're dying and they actually die, there's no way you're going to be able to find that out. I suppose if you die in a dream and you live to tell about it, that would disprove this notion. But there's no evidence to suggest, even remotely, that if you die in your dream that you'll really die. Can dreams predict the future? No, not reliably. Some people have what they believe to be clairvoyant dreams. They'll dream something and then sure enough it'll come to pass, but it's complicated to try to sort that out, whether dreams are really the window into the future, because it could become sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy that you have a dream and then you do things unconsciously to support that dream to actually become manifest in your waking life, your waking future life. So no, dreams can't predict the future. Do dream images mean anything? And this is a big one, because I think it's part of, this is Freud's contribution to our popular mindset and discourse about dreaming, that dream imagery actually has some sort of universal meaning. So if you dream about a bear chasing you, then it has some meaning, same meaning for everybody, some universal meaning. There's actually no evidence to suggest that dream imagery, the content that people dream about, even though we might share similar dream content, it doesn't mean the same thing to everybody everywhere. The important thing is to, if we're going to pay attention to dreams, and we should, what does the imagery and what does the experience that we have in the dream mean to us? And then by way of that, kind of coming to understanding about what dreams mean to us and what we're dreaming about means to us, then dreams have some utility. Some people in class ask me about recurring dreams and that sort of thing. You keep having the same dream over and over again. It's always the same thing happening, always the same imagery. And what I suggest is that, well, certainly you should pay attention to it. Maybe go online and see what the symbology, other people are saying about the symbology, but only as sort of a way to begin thinking about what the dream content means to you. Not that it has some universal meaning, or this is, you're having this repeating dream because there's absolutely something to be sorted out. No, it means that maybe you should just pay attention to it and try to figure out what it means to you. All right, dreams and culture. Certainly this class is biased. We are treating psychology from a Western, mainstream, academic, scientific point of view. Certainly there's other points of view on dreams. Cross-culturally, there's tremendous variation in the attention that people pay to dreams, the importance that people place on dreams. In our Western industrialized world, dreams are largely viewed as insignificant. Certainly, if you have a dream, it might spark your interest or your curiosity, particularly if it's a disturbing dream. You want to find out, what does this mean? Certainly, some of us pay attention to our dreams, but we're not prepared to bet the ranch on our dreams. For example, if I have a dream that I'm going to win the lottery, and so I liquidate all my retirement money and I buy I spend it all on, not that there's that much of it, but I buy a bunch of lottery tickets because I had the dream, that would probably not be a good idea. Some other cultures, though, dreams are viewed as a window into the spiritual world. That is, people view the dreams as sort of a conduit or a corridor into a higher plane of consciousness. Things happen in dreams that are inexplicable and that are transcendent in some cases. We wake from dreams feeling like we've had an experience that maybe we'll remember the rest of our lives. So in some cultures, there's a belief that dreams are sort of a pathway to a spiritual world. Aborigines in Australia, for example, paid a lot of attention to dreams. Dreams reveal important information about the self and the future. And again, in Western culture, it could be that we pay attention to our dreams, we learn something about ourselves, but we don't weight them significantly. In other cultures, they're weighted more heavily. For example, um, some cultures like the Punan Dayak of Borneo or Kalimantan, it's an Indonesian country, uh, or it's part of Indonesia. They were a nomadic uh, tribe that would base their movements on dreams of the shaman. So the shaman would dream, oh, we need to pack up and move on to another part of the island, another area, because the hunting's going to be good there or something like that. And he's seen it in his dream, predicting the future, so to speak. So an entire community would get up and move based on the dreams. People are held responsible for their dreams. This is an interesting one. So dreams are intimately tied in with the person. So if somebody has a dream, a malevolent dream or something like that, and it's prognostic, something happens that's consistent with the dream later on, it could be that they're held responsible for that, which is kind of an interesting phenomenon. So that our dreams are absolutely relevant in some cultures to what happens to us in our waking life, if we're going to be held responsible for them. Some basic dream themes seem universal, and in the section on personality, you'll read about Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychiatrist. He was a colleague of Freud's. He was a student of Freud's, actually, who went on to develop his own brand of psychology known as analytic psychology. He believed that dreams were dream imagery were shared cross culturally. That is, you find people dreaming of the same stuff. And what Jung suggested was that what we see in dreams and dream imagery is in part a manifestation of what he called the collective unconscious, that we're all sort of linked together, our common humanity, our common ancestral roots. We've all sort of emerged, and there's something that connects us all at the level of the unconscious. And these dream themes are universal, and they have universal meaning to everybody everywhere. So seem is the operative word here. That is, we compare our dream content against dream content from other cultures, and they seem universal, but it could be that because we share common experiences, it could be nothing more than that. But there's other perspectives on this that suggest maybe that we share dream content because we're all deeply connected in some way as humans. So there's lots of different ways to look at dreams and dreaming other than our mainstream academic Western scientific perspective. Again, I want to make the point that dreams are important mainly for us here in the United States of America, mainly important, at least from a psychological standpoint, to the extent that we kind of look at what we're dreaming about and we try to discern what they mean to us, rather than some sort of universal or universal meaning or some sort of prediction about the future or something like that. All right. So lastly, I want to talk a bit about hypnosis. Some of you are probably familiar with hypnosis. You've seen hypnosis in an entertainment context. And I've got some videos in the supplementary website section. So you can look at that if you want. Pause this and look at the video I have for hypnosis in an entertainment context. You don't have to watch the whole thing, just watch enough of it so that you get the idea. And then there's another clip I've included looking at the medical uses of hypnosis, which may be something that you've heard about, but did you know that there's some people that can't tolerate anesthetic, and so they undergo hypnosis and they can tolerate what would be an ordinarily very, very painful procedure, for example, a root canal, and they're, a dentist drilling on their teeth. They can tolerate that under hypnosis. So there's medical uses of hypnosis, and also watch this clip on the induction procedure. So to be brought into a state of hypnosis, we'll characterize that state in a minute, typically requires an induction procedure. And so, so if you look at that clip of the induction procedure, don't look at it too much because you don't want to get hypnotized. But that will show you, sort of demonstrate what's going on with the induction procedure. Basically, it's to induce relaxation and focus. All right, so hypnosis includes a heightened state of relaxation, focused attention. So the attention is usually focused on the individual who is doing the hypnotizing. So you're asked to attend to the sound of their voice. And a state of heightened suggestibility. So what suggestibility is your willingness to comply to the requests of others. That is your willingness to accept social influence. So you're relaxed, you're focused, your attention is focused on what the hypnotist is saying, and the hypnotist will introduce suggestions, and then in some cases people will go along with those suggestions. And suggestibility is something that varies from person to person. Some people are highly suggestible and others are not. The ones that are suggestible are good subjects for hypnosis. People who are not highly suggestible are not. That's why you see in some of these entertainment contexts, the hypnotist, the stage hypnotist, will select out of the audience people, and they have their ways. They select out of the audience people who they think are going to be good hypnotic subjects, and they'll eliminate the ones that they believe are not going to be. And then enhanced fantasy. This is, again, it's the ability to think divergently, to accept suggestions that may be having to do with us doing things that we wouldn't ordinarily do. Enhanced fantasy. All right, but what is it really? So we're going to look at two theories, Barber and Spanos' role-playing theory and Ernest Hilgard's altered state or dissociative theory. So let's look at Barber and Spanos' role-playing theory first. So what Barber and Spanos have to say is that hypnosis is a normal state of consciousness. It's not some mysterious altered state. This role-playing theory suggests that people have learned how to act as if they're hypnotized. So if they, for example, in a stage hypnosis sort of situation, they're accepting the influence of the stage hypnotist, and they act out their role as a hypnotized subject. Now, I want to say that this can be an extremely powerful experience for somebody. Some actors, for example, completely immerse themselves in the roles of the individuals that they're going to be playing. That is, they, for example, if they're going to be playing a police detective, they might follow a police detective around. They completely immerse themselves in what it means to be that character. So much so that when they're acting, the line between who they are and the role that they're playing becomes blurred. And for us as audience members, that's when acting becomes really fantastic, because we know the person is an actor, but we can't differentiate between who they are as actors and the role that they're playing. That's why sometimes we conflate actors with the roles that they play. They're acting. They're acting out a role. That's not how they are in real life, in most cases. So think of as acting or enacting role expectations of a hypnotized subject as being completely immersed in the role. This is why, even though somebody's playing a role, they might lose themselves in that role, so much so that they've lost themselves. Their personal identity just kind of evaporates, and often you have people walking away from these stage hypnosis experiences. They kind of don't remember what they did. They were so immersed in the role that they lost themselves. And some people are so suggestible that that they can readily they're quite prepared to accept social influence, and they can take on this role quite readily. So it's not that they're up there play acting; it's that they're completely immersed in the role, and they're acting out the according to the suggestions of the hypnotist. So some evidence that suggests hypnosis is role playing is that there's some, for example, entertainers that will have people. This woman here is the human plank, right? Her body is so rigid that she can stretch across two chairs like that. Well, in actual fact, if you know the technique, anybody could do that. Non-hypnotic subjects could do that as well. So there's the argument that there's some things that you can do in hypnosis that you can't do outside of the state of hypnosis. In many cases, that argument sort of falls flat. And then Ernest Hilgard's altered state or dissociation theory suggests that hypnosis is truly a unique altered state of consciousness. Specifically, hypnosis creates a dissociation in consciousness, a splitting off of mental processes into two separate simultaneous streams of awareness. So I want to go back to what I first mentioned to you guys in the first lecture, my creative writing teacher, John Fogus, floating above his body when he's on patrol in Vietnam and having this experience of being separate and apart from his body. And I suggested that that was dissociating, which we do. I mean, in our ordinary day, we dissociate quite readily. For example, there's something called highway hypnosis. You might have experienced it. You're driving on a long road trip, and all of a sudden you're home, and you can't remember, taking a right or a left or whatever. You can't remember anything about the journey, but and it seems like it was, no time whatsoever passed, and all of a sudden you're at your destination. Well, you just sort of lost yourself. You dissociated. Maybe your mind was wandering the whole time while your body sort of does automatically what it does as it drives. So that's a state of dissociation. It's really your consciousness being split into these two different streams. So you can be one place in your mind and another place as well, simultaneously. So it's a splitting off. So evidence to support this dissociative view is that, as I mentioned before, in medical uses of hypnosis, people can undergo otherwise very painful procedures under a state of hypnosis. So if you have a person that's a good subject for hypnosis, that is, they're highly suggestible, and they, for one reason or other, can't tolerate anesthetic, but yet they have to have a painful procedure done, medical procedure. It could be that they're a good candidate for undergoing the procedure under a state of hypnosis. And certainly this contradicts Barber and Spanos' role-playing theory, because no matter how good of a role player you are, you probably can't fake that a root canal doesn't hurt, that the dentist drilling on your tooth doesn't hurt. So there is evidence to suggest that we're able to dissociate, certainly, and have this dissociation induced by someone who's a hypnotist. So at present, they seem to be contradictory. There's no resolution between these opposing theories. Hypnosis certainly is used successfully in some cases in psychotherapy. That is, there's smoking cessation programs that are based on hypnosis that You accept the suggestion that you're going to change your habits, whether they're smoking or eating. Uh, Chronic pain can be reduced through hypnosis. People can tolerate painful procedures under hypnosis. So there's no resolution, but yet maybe we can think of hypnosis as being a couple of different things. In some cases, hypnosis really is somebody enacting the role of the hypnotized subject rather convincingly. Even they convince themselves that they're in a state of hypnosis, and they behave in the way they do, as we see people sometimes behaving on stage under hypnosis. And they are so immersed in the experience that they really truly believe that they lost themselves in the experience. And then there's the dissociative theories that certainly we dissociate. It's fairly ordinary occurrence, but maybe that dissociation can be induced by a hypnotist. All right, so here are the learning objectives. Please review them as you prepare for quizzes and tests.